from the industry with expertise in some of the other area of business management. And today's speaker is an expert in digital transformation. He'll be sharing his own perspective as a practitioner on digital strategy and transformation. And before I introduce our speaker today, I'd like to thank TCS for this collaboration, for this gesture. Thank you very much for this opportunity. So we have Mr. Sanjay Kalrani. He is the partner for advisory services for the BFSI industry verticals for India, Middle East and Africa. Over a period of 15 years in TCS, he has played several roles, from being an enterprise architecture consultant to helping several enterprise customers on their digital transformation journeys. That's why I think he's a perfect fit for sharing his perspective on digital strategy and transformation. Sanjay has also advised several banks, financial service companies, and insurers with digital strategies. And prior to joining TCS, he was the co-founder of a startup that provided banking technology solutions. So a warm welcome to you, Sanjay ji.
Thank you, Supriya. Thank you, Bombay Management Association, for giving me this opportunity.
So, so why don't we start with why, of course, digital transformation, this topic itself is really huge, and you will be talking from your own experience. You're presenting your own perspective, which will be, of course, unique. But why do you think, what is the importance of this? Why do you think it matters? And what can our audience expect? What kind of takeaway can the audience expect from today's session?
Right, thanks. So typically, if as a business or any enterprise, be it an NGO, be it a country, if we do not make use of the technology today, make use of digital, we get left behind. And we've seen that happen with a lot of companies, right? It is an imperative that you catch up with what is going on if you do not want to get extinct. That's as simple as that. The takeaway that we can see, or I hope to provide as part of this engagement, is bring in some experience. It may sound a bit suiting large enterprises, but I'm sure if you're not even in a large enterprise, if you have a small business, or if you're on your own, at least it gives you an approach that we take to start with the ideation of how could digital technologies actually affect me or my business, right? So if I'm a standalone business, I'm a lawyer, I'm a doctor, or I'm an enterprise or a medium, it could be anything. It's just that my presentation will be focused there in the large enterprises because that's what I serve, right? However, I've tried to make it as practical as possible, getting in a generic framework for connecting business imperatives to digital or the other way around. And I hope that takeaway, you get some practical aspects, because having done digital transformation even before it was called digital transformation has given us some experience, or given us some way of repeatedly doing it over for our global customers.
Okay, great. So I like the point that irrespective of whether you are an independent business owner or you're a large organization, your perspective will definitely give some sense of direction in what approach you can take.
Absolutely.
And I think that's quite interesting, because every time, I mean, there are so many events and digital transformation, sometimes it gets more skewed towards large enterprises. So that's a very thoughtful aspect that you mentioned. And I hope the audience enjoys. A very warm welcome to all the audience, all the people who have joined on this Friday evening. And now I hand over the stage to Sanjay. Please, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you. I would like to thank the audience for taking out the time and attending the session. I hope I justify the time that you're spending on a Friday evening. And let's get along. And I would be happy to answer questions at the end of the session. I'll start by sharing my screen, and maybe you could confirm once it is visible, Supriya.
Yeah, we're able to view it.
Right. Thank you. So let's get started. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a practitioner's perspective, having helped a lot of customers on the digital journey, like I mentioned, even before it was actually called digital transformation, right? Way back in 2009, a bank called us and said that, hey, we want to get into online banking strategy. That was their version of digital, right? It was not called digital, but it was online banking strategy. How could we get across to customers? How can customers self-service themselves using our online banking, which in those days was just web. There was no mobile application, there was no wearables, there was no other device, right? It was typically only the web. So starting from those days to where we've come today, and as I go along, you might find a bit of a you know inkling or inclination towards the banking, but I've tried to make it as generic as possible. Uh, I've put up a case study for an agricultural input company as well, so that it gets a bit more generic. What are we going to cover today? So as part of the agenda, we'll just set the definition aside, right? We'll just use one definition and we'll go with that. If you just Google what is digital transformation, you might see n number of definition. But I just took the first one and let's just sit with that. Let's just use that as the basis today, rather than discussing what it could mean. There could be many different things that digital transformation could mean to different people. But let's just go with one definition. We look at how digital transformation has evolved. This is where I will touch upon different industry verticals. I will talk about what is basic digitization versus digitalization versus digital transformation. All play of words, but at least the evolution is important of how one thing leads to the other and how all are connected to each other. So we'll go to that. This is an important section. The third component that I will talk about today is the business impact. We'll look at the generic business from one end to the other, and we'll see how digital can impact from across all the parts of the value chain of any business. And this is where it is completely agnostic of any industry, right? So we'll look at this is the meat of the presentation, following which I will look at some approach. There could be something that we've been using, some generic approaches to digital transformation, and finally we'll talk about some case studies. And here, this is where I said there are three case studies. One is for the agricultural input company, that's pesticide, that manufactures pesticides. How can that adopt digital technologies? There's an insurance company and there's a bank, and each of them are at different levels of adoption. Their appetites were completely different, and hence it served the they it merited their inclusion into this presentation. So let's get started. These are the five aspects of the presentation that we will touch upon today. What would you actually call digital transformation? Like I said, is integration of technology into all areas of business, and it fundamentally changes how you operate and deliver value to customers, right? And it's also a cultural change to challenge status quo. Like I said at the start, if you do not get into digital technologies, you have a good chance of getting extinct, because your competitors will do it, everybody else will be doing it, and your customers will not be able to interact with you with the way, as against the way they can interact with your competitors. And it also gives you a way to experiment, right? Challenging the status quo and experiment. I can talk about some technologies that were at the peak of their hype cycles, where they were at the peak, and nobody could see any use cases for it. But some CEOs of some companies called us to say that we know that perhaps it might not be useful for our industry, but then we don't want to be left behind without having to experiment with it. What if some new use case for this technology actually comes up and we get left behind? So experimenting is also an important part on this. And I can name the technology. It was blockchain technology in 2015 that a bank called us to say that we want to experiment with this, and we helped them experiment with a use case, which eventually did not give any fruits, but at least the company got their hands wet into that technology. So with this definition, like I said, I'm not going to touch upon a lot of definition, but this is what we believe is the definition. We'll just go with this one definition. The goal should be to improve efficiency, effectiveness, competitive by leveraging the power of technologies. And it is an ongoing process. It is constant evolution. It's not that I do it today and stop doing anything, right? It's an ongoing basis. For example, a bank in the Middle East asked us to, take us to the next step of adopting the new age digital technologies that are yet to come. Those are emerging technologies, right? So it's an ongoing thing. It cannot be that I do it today. I might draw a roadmap for 2 years for my enterprise, 3 years for my enterprise, but that does not stop here. It might happen the roadmap just falls flat on its face because something else has come up now. So it's an ongoing journey. How did digital transformation evolve? Or typically, if I took take three steps, one is simple digitization. When we traveled by train, our train tickets were handwritten, right? They were written on some ledger that this particular seat is booked by so and so person. Just basic putting that into some electronic format is basic digitization. It's directly conversion of existing information, product, services into digital formats. Simple analog information, written document being computerized is digitization. If I were to go to the next step, is using those technologies to transforming and streamlining process is digitalization. Again, like I said, it's a play of word, but it's the next step of digitization, right? It's just not computerization. We saw computerization of banks in, say, the year 1998 or 1999, when every branch was given a computer and they could manage their branch accounts at their level. But at the turn of the millennium, at after 2001 and 2, you could see banks started adopting core systems that were across all branches. It did not mean that I could only walk into my own branch to actually execute my transaction. I could go into any branch, right? So that is the next level. And this includes automating tasks, uses digital tools to make decisions, using digital platforms to facilitate communications, collaboration, and all of that. And finally, digital transformation is fundamental changing of how the organization changes and delivers value to customers. And it involves a wide range of activities. It could be to look at a new model altogether. It could be to redesigning my complete processes, and it requires a cultural shift. If you were to look at some industry examples, if you're from this industry, you might have a better slide on this. But if I were to look at it at a very simplistic way, we've seen all industries adopt to technology, right? Specifically information technology, digital technologies. In the early 1970s or late 70s, we could see that draftsmen were being replaced by at least computer aided design. So there was automation of drafting. Then came your 3D wireframes, CAD models, and a stronger relationship between design and production. So if you could actually design a product that could be easily produced, rather than creating a stumbling block for production, which change into computer numerically controlled machines and manufacturing resource products, right? MRP software, which eventually evolved to ERP, enterprise resource management, and widespread of internet changed the paradigm altogether, which today we are looking at things like digital twins, smart manufacturing, VR-led design, and Internet of Things. Digital twins, if you read about it, talks about creating a digital twin of a facility or a product or an entity on which you can simulate a lot of stuff. So even you could simulate physics or simulate even spatial dimensions to simulate things that you could do to transform it. If I look at retail, we started with basic computer-based cash registers, which were typically invented to avoid pilferage from the tills. We went into teleshopping, database marketing software, Online selling platforms came up a bit later in 1990s, and then these e-commerce platforms that we see today, and chatbots that could talk to you and convincing you to buy stuff. And eventually, right now we have a lot many things like loyalty gamifications, customer 360-degree view, or headless e-commerce, something that decouples the front end from the back end processes of a retail store. If you look at travel, tourism, and hospitality, late 70s, we started getting computerized airline reservations. We looked at global distribution systems. We looked at travel search engines. Eventually, we started mobile-based travel booking apps, dynamic pricing engines, and today we are looking at virtual guides in the metaverse. We are looking at travel financial planning apps, so on and so forth. So we've seen all these industries evolve from using mundane, simple technologies to becoming using these technologies to a complete, best effect for customers and for themselves, deriving value for all involved. So having touched upon the industry, maybe not complete justification, but at least talking about the industries and the impact of, the evolution of digital, let's get into a generic scenario of business impact of digital transformation. For this, what I'm going to use here is a business canvas. A business canvas is a standard model. You could search it on the net. This is a representation of a business from, the partners, the customer, the enterprise has, any business has, the activities it carries out, the resources that it needs, the value proposition that it creates, and the customers that it serves through maintaining relationships and through channels of delivery. In the end, what does the business work for? It works for revenue, right? And the cost that it incurs as a trade-off, right? So the business canvas model, which is a standard model, you can look it up. I wanted to use this because this gives a very good representation of a business from end to end, from its supply chain to its, customers all across, and it gives us individual opportunities for digitalizing or transforming it digitally. If I were to expand it and put up what difference can digital make into each of these is when I get into the next slide. So if I look at partners, if I had a way to digitally enable partners, suppliers, it helps me broaden my reach, right? It lets me get to more people than I could ever before. Think about Uber, think about Ola. They're not actually coming down to every cab driver. They just have an app that tells you, please sign up as a driver. In India, there is still some regulation where there is a lot of background check. The car has to be a specific type with a different registration. But in many countries, an Uber can just be a student who wants to earn some extra money by driving around for other people with his own car, with his right. So the reach definitely gets broadened up as far as partners are concerned using digital. It helps improve coordination, helps improve collaboration, and help me completely manage my supply chain with tighter integration, better agility, and better security. If you can appreciate this part, you will appreciate the rest of it as well. Think about any business and think about any partners that it ties up with. If you could enable them with digital, is where you actually given full justice to the thought behind this digitalizing the partners part. If I were to look at as a manufacturer, if I could help my suppliers, receive or POs from me and update their invoices so that I could pay them on time, is also for a brick and mortar company a good impact that digital transformation from this part can do. If I were to talk about key activities that a business does, it's all about being able to automate my processes, reduce human effort, make data-driven decisions so that I do not need a large think tank to carry out those activities. It happens based on some rule engine, based on some logic, and be able to communicate better between different sets of the organization itself. If I were to look at key resources using HRMS systems, human resource management system, talent management systems, you can use digital technologies to better manage the talents that we have or the resources that we manage. It could be any resources, just not based on talent. It could be based on, say, your resources in mining industry, right? Better mapping of the reservoir for oil, say for example. It could be anything. Hence, increasing our productivity, increasing our ability to manage data well. If I were to talk about key value propositions, it could be providing the type of customization that a customer wants. Without digital customization, mass tailor, mass personalization is absolutely not as easy as it would be with digital technologies. The convenience that I can give to the customers, the efficiency that I can serve my customers, the experience that I can give, and the insight that can derive from it and being competitive is the part that digital technologies play a major role in. If I want to talk about customer relationship, the the systems that help me manage my relationship, help me identify who my customers are, how can I serve them. Through Internet of Things, I could track their needs. They could willingly help me, providing me what is needed at what time. And I'm not talking about end customers, it could be large customers as well, right? It could be a customer of a customer. From a channel perspective, I could be reaching my customers through a large set of channels, completely omni-channel, irrespective of which channel I go through. I could be using augmented reality to reach you. I could use chatbots so that you could talk to somebody in my company without actually talking to a human being. From a customer segmentation perspective, there could be a lot of stuff that technology does, which you and I all have been exposed to. Being able to give the feedback at the right time, being able to receive the right set of promotions when I needed the best, being able to segment myself as per my behavior, being able to self-service myself as a customer, and being able to read reviews or engage with the company through social media. And digital does not only stop there. Digital also helps us with cost structures. It also helps us with revenue structures. It can help us with new revenue streams. Because digital exists, it provides us new revenue streams and helps us acquire new customers altogether. So having explained the business canvas and the impact of digital transformation on the business canvas, we can move on. What I have in the next few slides is describing what I just described. So I might just quickly go past these. We spoke about key partners. We spoke about key activities and key resources. We spoke about the value proposition that a company can give. We spoke about the customer relationships and channels. We spoke about the customer segments, right? How digital technologies can help across all of these. And we spoke about the cost structures and the revenue structure. Now, what we do in the next part is, if you want to create a digital strategy, it has all to fall into place, right? It is focus on 4 definite pillars. And these are 4 generic pillars that we've been helping our customers with. And it pretty much covers the entire, full gamut of whatever we want to do as a business. One is leveraging in ecosystems. That is connecting up with partners, connecting up with different, companies that could give us benefit, win-win situation. The second is customer centricity. which does not limit only to customers. It could be also stakeholder centricity. It could be your employee centricity, or it could be your uh, partner vendors, being able to connect with vendors. The third pillar for this strategy is insights, how data can help me improve my operations, how data can help me improve my business, and how it can improve my market reach or help me with better customer acquisition. And automation is all about the way I could automate processes. I could use technologies to streamline processes, reduce errors caused by humans, reduce cost, and increase efficiency. So essentially what we've done here is whatever we saw in the business canvas across all of these have been now categorized into four pillars: ecosystems, customer centricity, insights, and automation. And if you were to actually look at the way these four pillars have been evolving across the industries, I will now take you through the evolution of how these each of these four pillars have been evolving around the world. If I were to talk about ecosystems, it was just a single provider. If I am a bank, I provide a single service, or I outsource that part, say credit limit, or I just outsource that part to a provider. The next step is where you see people like Policy Bazaar that aggregate across different providers. That is business model collaboration. It gives me a single place to buy across different providers of the same type. The third is integrating it across different types of services. And a very good example is, say, TripAdvisor, right? It will help you rent a car, it will help you book a hotel, it will perhaps get you a loan for your holiday, it will help you buy a flight ticket, and it will also guide you to the best restaurants when you're traveling. So that's an ecosystem model integrator. And this is where we stand. This is where we have examples of aggregators who go across different services. And finally, the time will come where value integration, where the industry will evolve to finite ecosystem that work in decentralized fashion, and it will create complex value webs. And we are already seeing some parts of this enabled by the blockchain. The monogram that you see are mostly distributed apps enabled by Ethereum. And these are very good case studies, not yet successful, mind you, but this is where we are heading to with ecosystems. If you were to jump to automation, how has automation evolved? Simple, repetitive tasks being automated, right? Mundane tasks being automated. You take a loan book and you automate it using something that can replace the lowest end of the spectrum of thinking, right? You get into the next level where it is cognitive. At least it understands natural language, it has some cognition, it thinks, and it makes some decisions and automates tasks for us in a business. Following which you get into machine learning. Machine learning is vast with deep learning as a part of it, which uses large amounts of data to actually take decisions that typically a humans can. And finally, a larger set of artificial intelligence that does deduction, is unsupervised, and can do a lot more stuff and actually replace a lot of things that humans do. And humans can then focus on things that we can do better in life, be more creative rather than do some repetitive things. So that's where automation is heading towards. There are some examples that we put up. These are perhaps startups that are providing those solutions, Credit Watch, and mind you, these are more on the BFSI segments, but some examples that are there that help you. You could perhaps look them up and see what they're actually doing now. The third part is customer centricity. The evolution of customer centricity is all around first being able to consolidate. That was some years back where call centers, your customer, at least there was some omni-channel way of talking to a bank or a retail company or any business like a telecom company, like a mobile company, right? After which there is a next set of enablement of channels and reduction of human dependencies where a customer could be served perhaps without even having human dependency. Following which, a lot of intelligence got added where you would not even realize that your problem actually got solved without a human being serving you. And eventually, at one point, it is delivering a innovative, engaging, and gamified experience to customers, and creating a good customer loyalty by giving them a proactive and personalized financial coach. And this is one example of a BFSI industry again, where the customer is getting a complete gamified experience to his own financial planning. So that's the evolution of customer centricity. And finally, data, as we all know, is being termed as the new oil, where the first part which businesses did was I at least know my customer, who the customer is, right? Capture enough information so I know the customer from one product to the other. I know the customer has a credit card and hence has been paying me well. So at least I know the customer that I can perhaps provide him, her with another loan. After which I start building a relationship with a customer, build a deeper customer relationship with data-driven push notifications, following which I have deeper insights and start cross-selling to the customer and proactively pitching on financial needs in real time. And eventually, the network effect comes in, where the circle of influence and referrals come into place, where I can navigate through social media connects. So it's just not the customer. I look at somebody who looks like exactly like my customer, is in the same position, or is connected to my existing customers because he's a colleague, and I can actually generate business because I know certain things about the customer and the network. Mind you, all in the ethical space. We've been hearing the social media about how how companies are listening to it, but I'm talking about everything in the ethical space. Having looked at the four pillars and the way these four pillars have been evolving, and we started, so I'll just go back a little bit. We started with just a quick recap. We started with the business canvas model of how digital technologies can change different elements. We looked at how these elements can be divided into four broad categories and how these four pillars have evolved over a period of time, and what is the future, what is in store. Right? We cannot predict the future, but we can project a few things. So we looked at the evolution of these four pillars, and it is more. This is the part where it is more tilted towards the examples are more tilted towards finance, insurance, and financial services, banking, and so on and so forth. Now let's get into the approach. Having looked at the evolution of these four pillars, I will go over to the approach. How would you typically approach? And now this is where you talk about an enterprise, right? How do you approach a digital transformation? This is one of our frameworks that we use, just a cover page. If you ask me, there's a lot more detail in this. If a company calls us to help them with a digital transformation, I would look at three things. One is desirability, viability, and feasibility. And the first step that I would do is I would typically understand their aspirations, their goals. I would talk to their CEO, I would talk to their board, and I'll talk to them about why do you want to do it? What is it that you want to achieve? What is the value proposition that you currently have as a company? Is it your brand image? Is it your ability to, you know, give what the customer wants? Is it something that you have that nobody else has? Is it some IP that you're working with? Is it some natural resource that you're working with? All of that, right? I need to understand the current state. So the approach starts with a top-down approach of meeting the top management and understanding their strategy, their aspirations, their model, their value proposition. And following which we investigate, and this could be something maybe a little bit of bottom up rather than top down, understanding their current channels, their current customers, their competition, what is competition doing, what is the industry trend, what is regulation state, right? You may not be allowed to do everything uh, without getting the regulatory approval. After which, after we've got the understanding investigation done, we look at ideation. And ideation is where we put our heads together and sometimes with the customer along with us. It's not just the consultants that we take along. It could be talk about the journeys, the way to completely rethink the journeys, look at the value chain, look at the networks the customer, our customer, the enterprise has, and think about the desired outcomes. Once the ideation phase is done, we talk about design. We look at business capabilities, we talk about technology and digital architecture, we talk about business processes to support it, and the org structure that will enable the new way of working. And finally, once the design is done, the technology has been identified, the processes have been identified, we typically look at how will initiatives be executed on a roadmap over a period of X number of years to make sure that business runs as usual without disrupting the current business. How will you adopt and manage the change that we anticipate? So that's the last phase. And what you get out of this is typically all of these elements, right? So you would get a capability map, you will get a complete business model, you look at journey and experience and the value proposition that you get. And all of those interconnected would typically be the business blueprint for the digital transformation. So this is an approach. Like I said, it's a cover page, does not carry all the details, but at least at a level talks about the approach that we would take to help a large enterprise with a digital transformation. You may ask, what if I'm a small company, right? You might just use these steps to think through. This gives you a very logical way of thinking through. Maybe at a very small company level, it might be a big overhead to do all of this, but at least the the sequence in which this is done might at least help. What is now going ahead away from strategy and getting into transformation? What does this whole thing look like? If I were to start with the strategy, it will be three steps. Again, wordplay. You can use any other words here, but this is what we've used. Is what I will look at the determine part, where guiding our customers, enterprise customers, into investing into a transformation program, a digital transformation, whether they need it or not. Determine whether you need it or not. You then go into preparing the plan to implement the whole program, and then you design the components for the program. These are the three steps that you would typically create in a strategy, and this is where consulting would come in to the picture. Going ahead, you'd start building. So once the roadmap, the design part, mind you, finishes where we ended in the last slide, the roadmap. Once the roadmap is designed and the architecture, the org structure, the business processes are defined, you start building it and you start integrating the components that you're building along the way, right? It could be a mobile app, it could be some backend core system that needs to be updated, it could be some marketing documents, it could be some connects with some ecosystem people, ecosystem companies, vendors, partners. You start connecting, give them the technology requirement that they need to be ready with. That's where the building phase, and then the test phase, and finally delivering it to the production. That's where it goes live, and sustaining it in harvesting the expected value and measuring the success. Along all of these 7 phases that I've spoken, from determine to sustain, each phase would be involving certain sets of tracks. You need a value track. So for each of these, you need to determine whether you are actually going to create value. And by the end of it, when you come here, you need to measure that value. Along all of these 7 tracks, you would also need to look at how is my program being managed. So it's an important parameter, because at this stage, you loosely put it up as, say, a 2-year, 3-year journey. At this stage, the roadmap becomes your portfolio of all the initiatives that you're going to execute, all the programs, all the development that you're going to do. And this phase, it's actually the program management in effect, where it's actually being executed. Same goes with track quality. At this stage, you at least provide the strategy you will create to maintain quality, to maintain compliance to regulatory, to maintain compliance overall, right? To adhere to the laws of the land, to whatever. So that's where quality comes up and it progresses so that you're monitoring that quality all along, you're monitoring the regulatory requirement all along. The process you need, every digital transformation exercise would have an impact on the current processes. It would need a lot of alterations to the way processes are running in that organization. And the blueprinting, after the blueprinting, how does individual processes get affected are to be thought through here and actually implemented when the new solutions are built. Technology is the is the default. So technology is being built here, an important component besides other things like partnerships, business processes, and all. Where can you leverage data across all of these? Right from thinking of data will be there right from the determine phase to sustain of how you can better leverage data. And change management is obviously another important part because when you change processes, when you bring in new technologies, the people, the customers, your vendors need to adopt to that change. How will you manage that change? How will that change get actually socialized so that everybody adopts that change? We've been through enterprises where, you know, without change management, customer are the company that we've served has actually had two ways of working in different geographies because they've not been educated on how to use new systems or new processes or new partnerships. So change management obviously is very important in this transformation journey. If I were to look at it in a different perspective, and now I'm creating that 7x7 matrix that we started with, every track for every phase. And what I spoke about is first, you create a business case at the beginning phases, you look at where the value is being realized, and you monitor that value. If I talk about program product portfolio management, it's all about creating the roadmap that I mentioned in the consulting or the strategize phase. I look at whether they are actually being adhered to and the risks if I do not adhere to them. I talk about quality standards, quality management strategy. I talk about delivery acceptance and the satisfaction reports. From a process perspective, I look at the process gap analysis with the introduction of new technologies. We look at functional requirements for the processes of how they will fit into the digital tools and how will they be governed henceforth. We talk about technology. The initial phases will give me the high level technology landscape. The design phase will give me detailed technical specification for the development. And then in the later phases, technology will be monitored, performance will be monitored, the security and business continuity plans will be created. From a data, a proper data strategy needs to be in place in the initial phases. Talk about how migration will happen and how data will be governed on an ongoing basis. And finally, like I mentioned, the new org structure and the change readiness assessment and the actual communication and incentives for people to actually start using new methods that the enterprise has adopted. So this is the transformation journey. With this, we'll come into the last segment of the presentation today, the case studies. Now let me talk about a company that is an agricultural input company, and we were called to help them with a digital strategy. The products that they did was crop protection, that is, talk about pesticides, fungicides, insecticides, crop nutrition, and seeds. These were the three main businesses that the company had. And the stated objectives for the digital strategy, they called us and they said, this is what we want. We want to improve engagement with our customers and create value. We want to get to a larger customer base. We want to streamline our supply chain, and we want to enhance relevance to customers through market insights and products. Stated objective. This is what they said when they called us. And we were there to help them with this digital strategy. Now, what did the digital strategy for them look like? If I were to look at it from a perspective of three important stakeholders, the first is the farmer. And the farmer is the end user for this company. And there's very little connection with the company itself. Why? Because the farmer goes to his local store and buys what he wants. Perhaps he has a brand recall of what brand he's buying, but beside that, the company doesn't know who's buying it. The whole value chain of the customer begins with crop selection, what he needs to select as crops that he will actually grow, what techniques will he use, what inputs will he need, and what is my go to market, where will I sell what I harvest. This particular company was only connected here, agri inputs. But we ideated with the top management. We said, to get a better recall value or to better add value to a farmer, wouldn't it be helpful, because we have the knowledge from across the country, because we have certain knowledge of, say, climate or the type of soil or whatever, can we not also help the farmer do crop selection? Can we not also help the farmer do better farming techniques, use farming techniques? Can we not also help the farmer go to market of what crops are being sold at what rates? This was beyond shifting left and shifting right for the farmer's value chain with the company. And the customer warmed up, and we talked about digital channels that could be used to help, say, a mobile application for a farmer to help the customer select what crops based on where he is, where he's situated, right? Talk about farming techniques, because this company has all the knowledge, all the PhDs in the science, you know what makes best sense to protect the crops from infestations, right? Even before needing the actual agri inputs that we talk here. So exploring new ways to engage and provide value to farmers was the first thing that we said, let us expand into, let us go beyond what the farmer currently needs and help increase the mindset or increase the mind share in the hearts of the farmer, right? So we recall the brand much better than what he currently does. And that does not mean that you do not have revenue generation from all other parts of the relationship, right? For each of these, there are ways to monetize it. Maybe not in the beginning, content does not get sold, first given free, and then incrementally, you have, say, rich farmers who harvest grapes or grow grapes for wineries. And that is where they are ready to pay that money if you are able to give them the information that you can, right? About the climate, the soil, the viability of a certain crop, and also and so forth. So there are ways to generate value, and hence it might just fund itself for creating all these initiatives in that organization. The second stakeholder that we talk about is the people who interface with farmers. It could be your distributors, it could be the salespeople from the company that go to these distributors, and so on and so forth. So these are the business people, and leveraging digital tools for these distributors to gain better visibility into their supply demand. And the value chain here is all about how do you onboard distributors? How do you onboard salespeople? Is there a housewife in some town who's willing to give those extra hours to maybe do business for us, go to distributors and sell? Can there be a digital channel to onboard that housewife to start doing that business, right? Rather than going the normal way, can we use digital to reach, like in the business canvas we said, the partners on the leftmost side, the onboarding part, the engagement part, the introduction part of getting a better reach with partners is all that we're talking about here. How does the distributor or the salesperson plan his activities? Can we give them some digital tools? Like, for example, a salesperson from the company visits n number of villages and the distributors in those villages, can we give them a route map so that he better optimizes his plan or his route during the day? How does the distributor book orders with us? Can we give him a digital tool so that he uses it? The ease of use makes it easier for him to order with us over any competitors. And how does the distributor or the company actually get consumption tracking so that the overall inventory levels are not choked because of additional sales being done without consumption? So I can equalize using digital tools. I can actually get an optimized levels of inventories across the country rather than have hotspots of additional inventory that are not being consumed. So these were some ideas, and these were some applications or platforms that we suggested at the farmer and the business people, people who actually take business to distributors and farmers. The third stakeholder for digital technologies that we said were factories, right? And we could optimize manufacturing and planning processes to better manage inventory and quality levels. And their value chain looks like this. It looks at planning. You could start using digital technologies to do planning, which is typically connected with planning on the supply, uh, the distributor part. We talk about procurement, warehousing, manufacturing, and logistics. If you could use a good connection between the market and the manufacturing processes, you will typically have better inventory levels, better quality levels, because you will produce what is actually needed in the market. You'll be able to better forecast what is needed in the market and what already does not exist in extra quantities in the market. So this is the digital strategy, and what we did was, this is obviously just a snapshot of what we did, but it was a large engagement spanning over 3 months, a consulting engagement following which the transformation, what was picked up, what was prioritized by the customer, was actually implemented piece by piece. And today the company is at a different level from where it started way back when we did this engagement in say 2014 or 15. In 7 years, they've adopted many more things that I cannot say they've adopted everything here, because we even went up to suggesting new business models, like new ideas, like why don't we start a business to do Uberization of farm equipment? Why does every farmer need a tractor, right? Why don't we create something like Uber for tractors? So we went up to those ideas in digital transformation, but not all of it has make business sense, or not all of it is accepted by the board. But nevertheless, it helped the company get into the next level for digital strategy. Now we'll switch over to insurance company. This is simple, uh, you know, and I say simple because insurance companies are more used to adopting digital over or agri input company that serves farmers in say vernacular languages across the country, speaking different languages, not having access. Remember, this was 2015. It was not a revolutionized market where everybody had smartphones. The smartphone penetration, the internet penetration was much lower than to what we see today. But insurance companies are always at the and specifically this private insurance company was already only available in the the bigger towns of our country. Nevertheless, two types of stakeholders: the actual customers and the business people who go to these customers, be it your agents, brokers, banks, whatever, right? I'm putting them all together. And their value chain. What does a person do, right? When they want insurance, they generate a they generate a lead. They go to website, they call up an agent. And if I have the right digital tools to capture track leads, then I will have a lesser loss rate. I do not lose leads. I can do more conversions using digital technologies, all of this. I can engage better for better conversions. I can give them better product details. I can give them better product benefits, all that the customer needs at the right time using digital technologies. I can give better electronic issuance. Today, if I actually sign up for a health insurance, the policy PDF, if I fall into the bracket of being underwritten or being low risk, the policy actually gets emailed to me at the very moment that my payment is clear, right? And finally, digital tools for servicing. What if I could say, if I have a car insurance and if my car has met with a small accident, what if I could just click a picture of my fender that is broken and the company serves my claim or services my claim, right? So digital tools. On the other hand, from the business perspective, it's all about empowered agents who know how to serve customers, right? It's about empowered brokers who know who's there's a lead and who I need to contact. It's all about smoother onboarding processes to help the customer convert that lead, right? And it's also being able to service customers in an assisted way so that I know about the customer already while I speak to the customer. It could be anybody, right? So the business here I'm talking about is agents, call center, employees. It talk about bank assurance people. It could be brokers, all of that. And finally, what if the customer is, you know, due for renewal, and I can give them that proactive renewal reminder, helping the customer, helping the insurance company do better retention of customers. So this was a digital smaller subset. In the agricultural input company, was we were given a big free hand to look at all aspects of business. This was, say, specific, but it makes sense because use of digital technologies across these two important stakeholders would typically give a lot of benefits. And you can see today a lot of insurers today using a lot of these technologies, digital technologies, and transform them, right? Finally, the last part of this presentation, and I'm talking about a digital strategy, and this is completely different from the other two. And why I say this is because the bank called us to say that we do not want to hear what you do for other companies. I want to look at emerging technologies, technologies that have not been adopted elsewhere. And as part of this engagement, where we looked at emerging technologies, and emerging technologies could be, and we'll come to that in a moment, it could be, you know, huge spectrum, right? Something that can be adopted today to something that might just get adopted in the next 5 years. So if you've ever seen a Gartner hype cycle, you'll know what I'm talking about. Something that is at plateau productivity on the Gartner hype cycle is something that you could, if you've not already adopted as a company, you're already late on it. Something on the other side, on the left side, which is trigger for innovation, is something that's just been spoken about, right? And they're still far away on the horizon. In this strategy for a bank, there were lots of other things that we did, but one of the things that I brought up here is the tech radar. A tech radar is something that, again, the four pillars are the same: the automation, customer centricity, the insight, and ecosystem. The pillars remain the same because they more or less divide your digital aspirations into these four quadrants. And the radar itself, very much like the radars for aircraft that we see, the center of it is something that is very close. Technologies that are mature, if you've not already adopted today, you're already late. You should have already adopted them. The second cycle is the trial. This is where technologies have advanced and banks or other companies have already started adopting them. You may want to start testing these technologies, and these will move into adopt in the next 1 or 2 years. The third aspect, or the third circle, concentric circle, is about assess. These are technologies that use cases are being experimented, and they are not urgent for adoption, but they might move into your adopt stage by in 3 or 4 years. So you may need to keep your horizon. You may need to scan the horizon for these technologies. And finally, there are technologies that are too far-fetched. And I'll give you some examples. They're too far-fetched. They might come in 5 to 6 years, and it's very difficult to assess whether they will actually generate value for us or not. Right. So this is the radar that we gave, and I will flash the radar with actual technologies. I will not have the time to go through each technology, but I can give some examples. And this is the complete radar. It talks about technologies that are emerging at different stages, like I said, adopt, trial, assess, and hold. It talks about things on the outline circle of hold. Like, for example, if you look at 26, it's metaverse. We know metaverse exists. We know there are headsets that take us into a different world altogether, into a new virtual world, but we do not exactly have a use case for a bank, right? So one example. So right across from the inner circle to the outer circle, there are 57 new technologies that we mentioned to the customer. And for each of those technologies, as a part of digital transformation, they selected some of them and they asked us to do POCs, which are proofs of concept, as part of this. We are right on time, 1 hour, exact, maybe 2 minutes above 1 hour. And that's where we end our presentation. Thanks a lot for your patience. I know it's been a long monologue of 60 minutes, but I'll be happy to answer questions now.
Thank you very much. It was a, it, not just, I won't say an informative session, but it was definitely coming from a lot of experience. We can stop the screen share. Okay.
Has it stopped?
Yes, it has. It has.
Okay, thank you.
Great. I request the audience to please feel free to share their queries on the chat, and we can take them one by one with Mr. Sanjay. And while we await the queries from the audience, I mean, you have to actually touched upon a lot of things, right? From the basic, how you would define digital transformation. Then we know I mean, there are multiple interpretations and ways of looking at it, how it has evolved, so many things. And I mean, I've attended so many sessions and you know talks on this topic. This is definitely a very different, it's packaged in a very different way. And thank you so much for sharing your case studies. And the case studies also, I think your selection was very good. Agriculture, but you got a free hand to do whatever you want to do. Then moving on to your the insurance sector, where the requirements were quite specific, to the bank where it was completely on the other end, where the emerging technologies, where there's a lot of uncertainty, a lot of evaluation that is involved. So in fact, since I'll just say I have some questions. Let's say your last case study. So when you are talking about the technologies which are on hold, let's say emerging technologies which may get adopted 5-6 years down the line, like the outer circle in your graph, how do you evaluate? I mean, even conducting a POC, creating a POC is a challenge. So what has been your experience in adoption of such kind of technology so far?
Well, things on the outer circle have always been difficult to do a POC because you do not have the right vendors or the right startups or the right technologies available at that time. Right at that time, you may not have the right set of tools required. So POCs are typically, they start with the inner circle and maximum up to the second circle. They don't go up. Like if you ask me, if I can't find a use case for a metaverse in a bank right now, what do I do? How do I do a POC? Right? I might just buy a headset and play around with it at the most. So
so metaverse is quite interesting actually. The moment you said metaverse, it just caught my attention. Yeah, I mean, yes, it's definitely, like you said, use case driven, and there has to be enough sufficient tools around to even create a POC. That makes sense.
Yes.
Great. Anything in metaverse that you've done other than not being able to do it in bank?
So
anything that is being developed. I won't say that has been done, of course.
Yeah. So on a lighter side, an insurance company asked us to give a use case on metaverse, and honestly, the only use case we came out with when you wear the headset and you bang against something, you might need insurance yourself. Because there are use cases, if you read around them, they're use cases, but they're not compelling enough so far. But yes, like I mentioned, the blockchain example in 2015-16, the bank wanted to do it. At least the technology was available, but the use case was too weak.
Okay.
The use case we implemented was too weak. But we did it. We did a POC because technology was available.
But see, the adoption graph has been really impressive. I mean, let's take example of blockchain. So we don't know actually how it evolves. Initially, maybe the use cases are not clear or the tools are not there to do POC. But the way, if you take example of blockchain, the way the evolution, the adoption has happened, it's been very impressive across different segments.
Yes.
Okay. I can also see our executive committee member, Mr. Rishi, Jagmohan Rishi. Hello, welcome.
Thank you, Supriya. Hi, how are you?
I'm good. Nice to see you here.
Can I ask a question?
Please, I
Yeah,
invite all the audience members to please come forward and ask questions. I have a long list, but I don't want to really take up everyone's time.
yeah. So first of all, Happy New Year to all of you, and great session to start with. Sanjay ji, I was just amazed because I was driving, and while driving, I was listening to you. I just didn't want to miss any point from your side. Great the case studies you have presented. My question here is that I come from pharmaceuticals. One is that if you have a case study from pharmaceutical, I'd like to hear from you. Number two is one is to implement the digital transformation. Second is sustainability. The biggest challenge is about the sustainability part. What is your take on sustaining the digital transformation in organization?
Well, yeah. So first question, pharmaceutical. Well, I may not have directly done it because I look more of BFSI, but the agricultural input company also had a subcontracting company for pharmaceutical. So the manufacturing part actually applied there, right? And your second question, but if you want any case study from within TCS, we can talk offline. I can get you that.
Yeah.
And your second question about sustainability, it's a very, it's a constantly changing market, right? Things change a lot. I mean, by the time you've invested huge into some technology, somebody has disrupted it already, right? So you have to be nimble, agile to be able to, move on rather, and you need to fail fast and, accept that you failed. It's like loss booking in a share market, right? If you don't book your losses, you're deeper into it. So you have to be nimble enough to move on at the right time. And that's what we've been telling our customers, just move on. If you think you made a wrong decision, don't delve on it so long because, you might just end up losing more and more in it. So sustainability is, the market is too fast for that. But sustaining a good rate of change is important. Sustaining, being able to create your strategy on an ongoing basis, agile strategy to adapt to changes is an important part.
Right, absolutely. Totally agree. In fact, there is a recent case study by Novartis which made a Netflix in pharmaceuticals for doctors. So that has been introduced globally, and but in India it is yet to mature further. But globally, the most of the pharmaceutical companies are definitely jumping into the game and accordingly.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, sir. Great sessions, definitely. Great case studies.
Thank you, Rishi, for joining and for asking your query. In fact, we have another query from our audience from Kamal Shroff. That what are your views on Web3?
Sorry, Web3.
Yes.
Right. So, right. So we've been moving from one single-sided website that provided information on, which was called Web 1. Obviously, World War One was not called World War One because you didn't know something else was coming, right? And Web 2.0 came along where, you could interact with the bank, and Web 3 is where everybody everybody is involving, and that's where all companies are looking at how they can make best use of this, right? Social media, being able to interact completely with companies and being able to express your opinion totally is what we are looking at today. And everybody, all our digital technologies are centered around making best use of that new channel that is opened up.
Okay. Okay. So as I said, while we await others, tell me one more thing. I'm taking you to the other end of the spectrum now, a little away from your case studies, and let's talk about smaller entities. It could be SMEs, it could be, let's say, non-profit organizations. In my experience, little experience that I have in this segment is that while we are talking about digital transformation, but there are many organizations which still need to go through, as you said, the previous stages of evolution, like the digitalization, and then digital transformation. Uh, so, what there's one a company which really needs to grow. I mean, they can take a big bang approach, of course, but starting at that level when not much has happened, I'm sure there must be a lot of cultural challenges as well. It's not just about the financial investment, of course, that they have to do, but the acceptance by the ecosystem, by people who are in the system, especially. So you have any experience dealing with that where the plans are great and everything, but you really face that challenge?
Well, I have a different, not a challenge, but I have a different way to look at it. I'll give you two examples, Supriya. Two examples, right? One is, say, in the year 2016 or earlier than that, somebody told you that I'll have a mobile app which will help me book a cab. The driver will have a mobile app. He'll be able to locate me. He'll be able to come and pick me up. Uh, 99 out of 100 people would have said this is all wrong. It will not happen because mobiles are so expensive, internet is not there, and connectivity is not there, and all so on and so forth. But it did happen, right? It's one of the best case studies, Uber or Ola, that we see today. People would feel that the ecosystem is just not ready, but then you never know the rate at which it moves and it actually happens. That's one example. So I would look at it a different way. Yes, I know there'll be challenges in places where it's difficult, but this is a one good case study that I talk about. The second one, and I like to talk about this organization, an NGO called Rangde.org. I happen to look at it, and it's for social investment. What it does is, at the grassroots level, there is a lady in Orissa who wants to start a business for selling vegetables, and all she needs for the day is 500 rupees. 500 rupees to start a business because she needs 1 day stock. By the end of it, whatever margin she adds to it, she takes home, right? So she earns 700, 800 for it. And what Rangde does is, you become a social investor. They give you connects to all such people around the country at grassroots level. You pay the 500 rupees to that person. It's not a donation, it's an investment. The person pays that money on EMI with interest. What is
P2P
500
kind
rupees
of
to
a
me?
model. The
Yeah,
P2P kind of a model.
correct. And the lady pays back to Rangde, and Rangde gives it back into your account on an EMI basis with the interest. As a social investor, you can pledge to not take the interest. Okay. And you just take your principal back and you invest it elsewhere. Now tell me, at the grassroots level, the person who's actually needing that 500 rupees, is that person technology enabled? But people have found ways, innovative ways to reach there, right? At the grassroots. It's an NGO still using a digital channel to reach me, to reach you, to reach all investors, but it does not have the wherewithal to reach the actual people who need that money, because those are people who are actually at the lowest level, right? Poverty stricken, but they need that money to at least start their business, small business. So these conditions are there. So always let's have a positive outlook to such things. I became a social investor in 2012 with Rangde, and I still invest in, it's an amazing platform. I'm not nowhere connected to it. I'm just a small time investor, but I get I feel proud of being in a place where something has been done right at grassroots levels.
Lovely. That's an amazing example and very encouraging as well. For I'm sure the way the audience interprets would be different in their context, but really a very good example. Olas and Ubers, we know, yes, we just need a little nudge of reminder, but this was an excellent example. Thanks. We have one query from Mr. Pramod Agarwal. He says it was a great session, which I totally agree. Uh, so his question is, how are companies resolving dilemma of whether they should invest and be an early adopters, though they are unsure of return, versus should they wait for other adopters as proof? So be the first mover or not, kind of a
Yeah.
question.
We've seen all types of companies. We've seen people who are conservative enough, who will, look for others to fail, clear, only then start adopting. There are people who are navigators who want to explore and use something even if it's not proven yet. It's a gamble, right? I invest a lot in a technology. I lose the money if it is not successful. I do not get any value, or if I get it and I'm known as a market leader. So we've seen all types of customers in adopters. So these companies obviously resolve their dilemma from based on their basic inherent habit or culture that they form, right? Like the agriculture company thought that the farmer app and farmer thing was good, but Uberization of tractors was too much. Maybe it's too far fetched. Maybe it's still that's why you don't see it yet. Maybe that's why nobody's done it, right? So if I give you an idea today of say a new startup, a new business, it's a gamble. Similarly, for a large company, it's a gamble. Maybe for them, it's not too much of a investment. It's a small investment to try out a new technology and fail at it. But at the same time, gaining that experience adds to their portfolio should that technology turn around at some point of time or the environment change to support that technology at that point of time.
Makes sense. And as a marketer, I'll add that if you invest and it seems like you're getting success at it, then don't forget to include it in your plan to actually leverage on that through marketing and PR. Because I have come across companies where they're doing excellent stuff. The way they are using digital transformation to deliver the services they are giving, but they are not really going out. All their investment is in that whole digital transformation, but they are not going out in the market and telling people about it. So it's like you onboard Virat Kohli as a brand ambassador, but you don't pump in enough money on beating the drums about it. So it's almost like that. Great. So okay, we don't have any more queries right now. So I'd like to thank you so much, Mr. Sanjay. It was very interesting. And the way you have approached this presentation, I thoroughly enjoyed it. Step by step, you have built it. And of course, it's through experience that you spoke. And that's what I think everyone will appreciate. On behalf of Bombay Management Association, thank you very much. And I thank the audience for being a part of this session. And if you have any queries, please feel free to contact us. Andrela, kindly share the contact email ID of BMA over here. And we will definitely try our level best to get the response from Sanjay ji.
Absolutely. More than happy.
Great. And also before we call it a day, I'd like to invite all of you for our upcoming digital transformation, the conference which is related to digital transformation. It's called Digital Leadership Summit. And Rishi, would you like to talk a bit about it?
Yes, sure. In fact, this is our very prestigious Digital Leadership Summit, which is happening this month. And I invite all of you to attend it. It is at a place which is a deserving place at IIT Mumbai. And we are getting speakers from who's who of the industry, wherein we have inviting Sam Petroda, sir, and lots of dignitaries from the government as well as from the education institution, where we are going to showcase the latest case studies, and just like we saw over here at the event. And we're expecting almost 300 to 400 participant delegates over there. So earlier you register, the better it is for us. So block your place accordingly at Digital Leadership Summit. And more details, I think Andrela will be putting it in the group. It is on 20th of Jan, 9 a.m. starting. It is starting at 9 a.m. and at IIT Powai. More details will be put in the group accordingly.
Yes,
Thank you
we
very much.
have shared the details on the chat for everyone with all the relevant links, and it is invitation by invitation. So all you have to do is just fill the form. We don't want to limit the sharing the information with anyone. It's you're not. It's a complimentary event, but your learnings will be priceless.
Yeah, but it is a registration by invite only.
Yes. So I've shared all the links, the brochure, the agenda, and the registration form, direct links. So feel free to explore and look forward to seeing you all on 20th of Jan at IIT Bombay campus for digital transformation event. Thank you so much, everyone, and have a good weekend. Have a nice weekend.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.